a very happy and blessed 28th anniversary of Veronica the Cross, and of course a happy centennial to our dearly beloved seer. As you know, she was born on July 12th, 1923. And good people, this has to rank, this really very tough tragedy that Veronica had to endure. This has to rank with one of her severest trials that she had to suffer in her life and in her mission. And you're talking about someone that bore the stigmata, that would experience the passion of our Lord every Lent, and many other severe trials and tribulations. But once again, this has to be right up there. And I think any mother who loses her son suddenly and violently, like Veronica did with her dear son Raymond, it's a terrible cross for anyone. But you have to understand, you have to put this in context. With Veronica the Cross, there's about 10 layers to this. And I think it begins, number one, with her son Raymond. He shared in many of her supernatural experiences, beginning in August 6th, 1968, when Veronica first saw St. Teresa, the Little Flower. She had asked her husband to get a statue of St. Teresa. She brought it home, put it on her dresser. That became her altar, and she would pray there. Well, on that particular day, once again, August 6th, 1968, St. Teresa appeared to her. And she felt like a little explosion on her face, and she went into a very semi-conscious or even ecstatic state. And at one point, she yelled out, "Ah, St. Teresa, the Little Flower." She actually screamed it out. And her 10-year-old son, Raymond, came forward. And she turned to her son and said, "Raymond, tell Mommy, what do you see?" And only as a 10-year-old boy could express, he said, "I see a lady with a fat face all lit up." And Veronica just let out a sigh of relief and exhaled, because Veronica was the type, too, she always wanted to share her visions with other people, knowing, number one, that, am I really seeing this? I'm not crazy or cuckoo. So that was a great support when her son saw the same thing that she did. And Raymond would share in other experiences as well. And they really developed a very close and intimate bond. He became a helper. As Our Lady said, Raymond was an instrument of heaven. He was a helper. He was a worker. Very, very close. So that's what made it even more painful. The other thing, too, is at this time now, at St. Robert Bellarmine, we're arriving at a crescendo here, because the neighbors, the parishioners and beyond, there was a lot of anger and rage at beloved Veronica. She was really being attacked. In fact, when you read her writing, she said there was 2 hired guns, 2 hired killers that were trying to knock her off. And in fact, there was one fellow there that a young fellow in a sports car who tried to run her over on multiple occasions, until that ended, because his last attempt, he missed her, lost control, and crashed into a tree, and he died instantly. So this is what's on her plate. And so very, very difficult circumstances that she's dealing with. And then on top of that, 10 days to 2 weeks before this tragedy of her son, she had a mysterious locution from Jesus and the Eternal Father. And, or she wasn't sure. She knew it was a very powerful voice. She wasn't sure if it was the Eternal Father or Jesus, but she heard the voice, and it said, "Veronica, will you give me your son?" And she heard this, and she said, "Boy, will I give my son?" "Well, yeah." She said, "Of course I will." Veronica never denied anything to Jesus and Mary. And as she told me later, she said, "Jesus," she says, "I thought, maybe Raymond might be a priest." She says, "But then again, what son are they talking about?" She had 4 sons. She had no idea really exactly what was going to transpire. And until a little while later, Raymond her son approaches her and asks her, "Can I go upstate with two of my friends? The dad, the parent, will be there." And Veronica didn't want him to go. Very, very reluctant. She didn't get a good feel for this. But at that time, Raymond was 16 years old. And he had been really suffering a lot of persecution from the neighbors and friends. They were making sport of him, and they were calling his mother crazy. And it was very difficult, very, very difficult for Raymond, for a young man, young boy, really. And so Veronica felt bad. She says, okay. She says, I'm going to let him go. Let him go upstate. So he did. And the idea was he was just going upstate to relax, chillax, as they say today. He brought his camera. He's going to be doing some photographic work as well. And hang out in the woods in a cabin. Sounds like a lot of fun for some boys. Well, Veronica didn't know some of the stuff that was transpiring there, and as it turned out, a couple days later, actually, there's a knock on the door. The state police knocks on the door, and her husband Arthur answers the door, and the state officer, hands Arthur a note, which obviously says that your son has died in a shooting accident. Well, Arthur just handed it to his wife, and she read it, and she just became hysterical. And as Arthur explained to me, she walked out the back door, and she was wailing. It just was too much to bear. Undoubtedly, really what was going on in her heart and soul, she must have heard, Veronica, will you give me your son? This was all, the dots were starting to connect now with Veronica. But I think what was very impressive, and it really shows extraordinary virtue on the part of our beloved seer, is that she never pressed charges and she didn't sue. And she was pressured to by her friends, her circle, and other people. And as it turned out, as she got the story from the inquest and from the young boy himself. He told her what happened. The father was stone drunk. He gave them rifles, the kids rifles. They were shooting, they were doing some target practice with tin cups. But at one point, the 14-year-old decided that he would kind of do a remake of a Hollywood movie. So he threw a block of wood at Raymond, and he wanted to shoot the block of wood and have it go away, like they do in the movies. Well, he missed. And poor Raymond got a bullet, one shot right through his heart. And he was, of course, sent home to his maker. And this is what he told Veronica. The boy told Veronica what happened. And I think if you understand the facts and everything, good people, this was what you would call a slam dunk case for her making a ton of money. I mean, you have gross negligence. You have a drunk parent who gave minors rifles. That she probably would win in court. And furthermore, she could probably press charges, and he'd be in jail himself. The boys did have to go to, I think, a juvenile court hearing, but the bottom line is the father ended up paying $25 fine that they charged upstate for giving rifles to a minor, and no one suffered any jail time or conviction or anything of that sort. Veronica was very clear. I'm not suing, and I'm not pressing charges. It's not really the Christian thing. One thing I know is that that man is going to have to live with it for the rest of his life. And I think that's going to be enough penance and punishment for him. And so she would not do it. And so I really think that was very amazing. Really shows her great virtue that she had there. Not many people could do that. They would want some type of justice or compensation, and she said no. She was not going to do that. And the one thing that really struck her too the most, and that really helped and supported her, was that locution from Jesus and the Eternal Father. Veronica, will you give me your son? So when that rang in her heart and soul, that brought her a lot of peace. Meanwhile, she goes to the wake of her son, and that night, of course, she has to go to the vigil. So she's still grieving, but it's kind of like business as usual with heaven, if you will. And there's a message that night. And of course, Our Lady's very gracious. Read when you have a chance the February 1st, 1974 message, a very powerful and beautiful message. And Our Lady is very, very gracious. She said, the Father loves you and cares for you. And she says, and Our Lady says, I too know the pain and anguish of the loss of a son. And of course, Veronica could relate to that as well, obviously. And so there was a wonderful consolation. She even said, Raymond has been saved. He's in heaven. You won't understand right now, but you will. And that was interesting, because then they go into the message, in which Veronica has a vision of evil cardinals and bishops, particularly 3 bishops. Our Lady said they're going to start a council, and one of these 3 bishops, again, very evil. They have the papal key. There's blood dripping, and one of them has a hammer, a sledgehammer, and is just attacking the wall of the Vatican. Very similar to this here. Someone attacked this Vatican Pavilion site with a sledgehammer or something. Probably a Satanist, to be honest with you. But in any event, that was the vision she had there. So again, a very intense message. But then, towards the end of the message, Our Lady says, I have a secret for you. And Our Lady then shows Veronica a group of people that are rushing from purgatory, going up what Veronica described as a golden ladder. A gold ladder, she said, or a gold beam going to heaven. And Our Lady said 1,242 souls have been released at 6 o'clock your time. This, as we've learned from Our Lady of the Roses, first Saturday is a very popular, it seems a popular day and time, a top popular day for Our Lady to release the souls from purgatory. And she said, once again, remember this, 1,242 souls released from purgatory at 6 o'clock your time. Veronica's looking at the vision, and she sees, who does she see? She sees her son, Raymond, going into heaven, and he gives a little wave. So you can imagine the elation, the jubilation of his mother, and see Raymond give a little wave. And Our Lady told Veronica, he would have been on the ladder sooner, but I held it back so you could see it tonight at the Vigil. So that was a beautiful, very, very beautiful gift from heaven for Veronica.
I see, it looks like a gate, and I see, they look like people, but they're very transparent. They're people, they're very transparent. They all seem very joyous. There's a great light opening in the sky, and there's a ladder coming down from the sky. It looks like a ladder, but it's solid gold. It's like a stairway of solid gold. It's just beautiful. And I see all these people. Oh, and they're so happy. They're rushing up. They're rushing up. Oh, there's my Ray. Ray. Oh, 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 and oh, he's waving. Oh, 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 oh. Thank you, Mother. Thank you. Oh, you see, my child, I promised you, and I have never broken a promise. Oh, I want to always remember. I saw my Ray, and he was waving at me. He saw me. He saw me. Oh.
You can see really the lows and the highs, the agony and the ecstasy, particularly of being a seer for heaven. And Veronica has told me this so many times as well, that God works in such mysterious ways. But this particular instant, what it did to Veronica, and when I read it, I said, wow. She said, I'm not going to sue. I'm not pressing charges. That's not important. We don't need guns. Let's trust in God and in the protection and love of God. And she said, frankly, she says, I don't care if my whole family is shot or dies, as long as their soul is saved. That's the only thing that matters, that they are with Jesus and Mary for eternity. And when I read that, that really moved me tremendously. But I think, good people, I think there's one big takeaway in all of this. Because most of you know the sanctity and the holiness of Veronica the Cross. You didn't know it in a personal way like I did. I mean, obviously, as I've said many times, I spoke to Veronica nearly every day for 6 years. Got a very intimate look of a very holy and saintly woman. But you've read enough, and you've just heard me say here and remind you of her extraordinary virtue. And I think the big takeaway here, good people, is you have your own pain and anguish and torture and temptations and struggles and joy and jubilation. Our Lady has said many times, there's roses with the thorns. It's not all thorns. Heaven does give you roses once in a while. But the point being is we are all struggling. These are the end times. It's very, very difficult. Whom better, really, to appeal to pray to petition, than one of the greatest saints of the 20th century, Veronica of the Cross. One of the greatest saints in the 20th century. And I think, too, good people, few people carried their cross as well as that holy woman and that special woman with that special name, Veronica of the Cross. And let me assure you, too, good people, that Veronica loves you. She loves all of the Baysiders. And if she could move a mountain for you, she will. Because she loves any devotee, any Baysider that lives, loves, and promotes the powerful, soul-saving message of Our Lady of the Roses, Mary, Help of Mothers. God bless you. A happy 28th anniversary of Veronica the Cross. A happy centennial, Veronica, dear Veronica. Continue to assist us from on high and helping us with this urgent mission that you established decades ago. Hi everyone, thanks for watching. Be sure to hit the subscribe button below and the like button if you enjoyed it. Also to remember to turn on your notifications too. Peace and blessings through Our Lady of the Roses and Veronica of the Cross.